First things first, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm alright, thank you. So what I want to start with, I saw something, I think it was on Facebook, where you dreamt about playing Montreux Jazz maybe 12 years ago. So if
Maybe more even,
but if we go back to that time, what mindset were you when with music?
I was listening a lot to jazz.
Okay.
Really, probably almost only jazz at that time, and I had just started my own band, started to figure out kind of what I wanted to do in music, and I thought I had wanted to be a jazz singer, you know, but then I got to the school where I was going to be studying, and I met all of the jazz singers, and I totally didn't fit in, and I was kind of like felt like the ugly duckling, like felt like really didn't fit me, and also was really frustrated because I felt like I couldn't add anything to this tradition. Like it was a tradition that was really rich and exciting as a listener, and but as a person making music, I felt like I couldn't add anything to that.
Right.
So I had quit singing actually, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I just started like composing instrumental music. And I had just met Marco Buccelli, who plays drums on my albums and produced the 2 records. We just had met, and he started listening to the stuff that I was writing, and we started working on my first band together, and we started a band called La Mala Madre, which means the bad mother. And we were like, oh, we can go like on tour in Europe, and like we can submit to these jazz festivals. And like I think he thought that I knew someone at the jazz festival, because I was like, yeah, we'll like send a press kit, we'll mail. So like we made these press kits, and then like only later he realized like I didn't know anyone. I just found like the address of the festival, and I mailed our press kit. But,
So never a reply?
No, we didn't get a reply. But
Unfortunately.
who knows? Maybe that's why I got booked 12 years later.
Yeah, fair
I don't
enough.
think so. But.
So I want to jump a little bit back then, because what initially got you into jazz? Why did it appeal to you?
Well, when I was 13 years old, I was in this summer camp kind of thing that they did for inner city kids to like have something to do in the summertime when there's no school. And this teacher played like a Love Supreme, John Coltrane's album, for the first time, and I had never heard anything like that before. And there was this guy that was kind of cute in my class, and I had a crush on him, and he was a trumpet player. And he was like, oh, have you heard Miles Davis? And I was like, oh, yes, of course, I love him. But I didn't know who that was. But so I started listening a lot to Miles. And so after this summer thing, I listened to, started really listening to jazz more seriously. And I started getting into like jazz singers like Billie Holiday and Betty Carter and Abbey Lincoln, and listening to that music and being really excited by it. And that was kind of when I started to take like jazz more seriously. Before then I had just always liked to sing, and I knew that I wanted to make music, but I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I wanted to move to New York.
Okay.
I grew up in Hartford, in a really small city.
Right.
Like 2 hours north of New York. Only child, first generation, born in America. So like all the cards were there for me to be like, you have to do something great, and like you have to go to college and you have to do something. But really I just wanted to like run away and go to New York and like listen to music and figure things out.
But you did study, like you say, jazz.
I did.
So was there, in a sense, a sense of pressure in a way of trying to, okay, I have to kind of fulfill this?
Well, I mean, my dad, I think my father was a classical music fan, so he wanted me to, if I was interested in music, he was like, oh, this is great, she's going to be an opera singer, like she's going to be a classical pianist or something. And those are things that, you know, my father would have loved to explore, but it was a luxury to like even think about doing music. So, so there was like a little bit of pressure to be like something good, but I also had just like already disappointed him in that sense that I just like didn't really care about
Okay.
like being an opera singer or anything. So it didn't really matter in that sense. I think the pressure was to like go to school. Like
Okay.
it wasn't unacceptable if I had said like I don't really know if I want to do, I just want to go to New York. That was like not an option. So I had to choose, and luckily my parents were cool with like me going to a music school, you know. So I think ultimately like the pressure is to do something meaningful
Right.
with my life, you know, and you know, try to be good at something.
And but you did end up in New York. So was that when for you, and like you say, when you studied jazz, that genre started to blur, or that kind of music became just music and not so much I want to sing in this style? Or?
Yeah, I think I realized like after that experience of going there to be a jazz singer, I realized like that wasn't me, you know, like I was just more important to do whatever I want to do. So in music anyway, like otherwise it just wasn't exciting to me. I wanted to like make something different, make something new that was challenging me and like that could be mine. So I think once I let go of that jazz singer thing, I just started listening to music and like listening to everything, like electronic music for the first time, like punk. I got into like the Pixies and Bjork, and still listening to jazz music, and then listening to funk and Sly and the Family Stone and hip hop music, rap. Just started listening to anything that I liked, you know, and just focusing on like my ideas and writing. And so, yeah, when I moved to New York, it was more about writing, but I was still not singing at that point. I was writing like instrumental music for like small chamber groups. And I really started writing songs again when my dad got really sick. He was living in Florida, and I had gone through a really hard time taking care of him, and I just got back to New York after being away for a while, dealing with some illness of his, and I felt like really urgent, like I wanted to make music, and I didn't want to wait to like have a rehearsal and like write all the parts out and like have everybody else learn it. I just wanted to play it myself. So I like got a really cheap keyboard that I had lying around, and I got like a loop station, and I booked a show, the solo show. And I played, it was the first time I ever played in front of people, like piano. I was always like, oh, I can't play piano, I'm not a pianist, like I shouldn't be playing that. And I just did it, and it felt so good. And I thought that like no one's gonna be there, it's just really for me, like I need to make this song, like I need to feel better, I need to like do something to snap out of it. And that show ended up being like sold out, and like a ton of people there. I was so nervous, but afterwards I realized like, this is what I should be doing, because it's so instant. Like I don't need to wait on anyone to be ready, or like I don't need to rehearse anyone. I just worry about myself. So that's how I wrote my first album, Magic Trix. I wrote it on like keyboards and just playing. In those couple of months, I just wrote the whole record.
And in that time, did lyrics start becoming more important to you?
Later, like my second album, Black Terry Cat, was when I kind of started thinking more about lyrics.
Because you mentioned, well, the illness of your father, and so initially the writing was mainly musical, and then not thoughts?
The words were always like the second thing, you know, like the last thing was about like, because I would just start improvising and like making sounds, and like sometimes they were words, sometimes they were just sounds, and then I would kind of like put it together kind of at the end and try to make it to say something, but it was always about the music, and it still is for me, is about like the ideas, the music. But I thought it was important to like face why am I not, you know, working with words. Like I'm a singer, so my instrument, I can also have words on my instrument. So like why am I not doing that? And I think I was afraid of saying stuff, because like, you know, people are listening to the stuff that you say and they judge you, and like I was thinking like I was having like impostor syndrome, like thinking like I'm not, you know, I don't know enough about blah 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 to say something, you know. It was like felt pressure to say things, or to be wrong, or you know, to be judged. I feel like with music and with sound, it's so subjective and it's so open that even if someone judges me, like I don't really care that much. But words are important, you know, and like I feel like they carry a lot of weight, so it's like scared me to be more literal.
What happened then in between those two albums where you did get confidence, or you knew you did have something to say?
Well, I definitely didn't get the confidence, but I just was like, it's boring if you always do the same thing, you know? So I realized like I was I realized that I was afraid of this, so I knew that I had to go and do it, because otherwise, like, I'm not doing any, I'm just wasting time, like, sitting around doing the same thing, you know, or like, if I'm not facing something I'm afraid of, I'm just wasting my time. So I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be really bad. I don't know, but like, just do it. And so I started just writing, doing some exercises, like trying to write every day, a story, a joke, like something, poem, and just fooled myself into thinking like, I'm not writing an album, I'm just writing stories or something. And slowly, like, they became an album.
Yeah, when did you start to notice that there were certain themes that would pop up, and there were certain things that you wanted to address in your music?
Well, I guess the theme, like, when the record is done, like, then you see, like, oh, okay, like, these are all the songs that are on it, and I was talking about all of this stuff, you know, like, when you start to do press or whatever, everyone starts asking you about what's on the album, and you're like, oh, I didn't know, like, I was going to have, I didn't think about having all these interviews about, like, oh, political message in your music or whatever. I didn't think about that when I was writing it, but, you know, after the fact is when I realized, like, what I was thinking about.
So once an album is finished, then were you worried about putting it out? And because you say initially you were worried about putting certain lyrics, or
I wasn't. I was really anxious to put it out. Like, I really was very proud of the music and had been a long time coming and worked really hard on it. So I was really, like, happy for it to come out. And I guess then the problem comes later when, like, you have to, like, talk to people about it, and, like, people ask you things about it. And it's like, that becomes problematic, because then you have to, like, position your work or something. Like, you have to, you know, talk about whatever these other people are curious about, you know? Whereas, like, a painter, like, I don't know, Basquiat or something, like, he probably wasn't there, like, oh, now I'm going to have to do all of these interviews about this painting that I did. Like, he may have done some of them, but it's really different now, because, you know, it's like there's so much access and there's so much expectation with artists to, like, to talk to you so literally and so concretely about whatever story this writer wants to write about, you know? So it's kind of problematic, because it's very different, you know, like, making the thing and then, like, talking about it. It's
because I read about this where you said that because people were kind of pigeonholing you as this political artist, and that you said it's more like you compared it to how Nina Simone made music. So am I right in saying that it's more of that sort of approach where you are socially conscious, but that's not.
Yeah, it's not like my main thing.
Exactly.
I mean, I would say, like, I wouldn't compare Nina Simone's, you know, work and mine. I think that she did, she was, like, a very important figure in during the civil rights movement, and her music, like, is timely today. I don't know. I think she was just speaking on her experience and her, and I can see why also she's billed as this, like, sometimes as, like, a protest artist, but her work is so much more expansive than that. She's an incredible pianist, an incredible composer. So there's so much about her. So I guess in that way I identify, you know, like, with that, with her, in that it's, like, easy for people to put that on her. But but if you know her work, like, you know that she's not a protest singer or something, like, you know. And I'm not putting people down that do that, but it's just it's a different thing. So I think I see myself as, like, telling you things that I'm curious about, things that I'm afraid of, stuff that I'm wondering, trying to figure out, and then through my music.
And well, if we move then towards the live performances, how do you experience those? Is it again, or not again, but is it a very conscious thing? Are you very much focused on the words, or how do
a performance? Well, this tour is very different for me, because for the first time I'm not behind an instrument the whole time. I have other people that are playing parts with me, and the way the music is written and sampling and things like that allow me to be away from the keyboard. So it was actually really frightening for me but also exciting, because I wanted to, like, get away from the keyboard and, like, be more, like, in my body, as my instrument is in my body, and, like, it's affected by how I'm moving, and I wanted to experiment with all those things. So performance has, like, changed a lot for me, and I've learned a lot from being away from instruments, and like I'm thinking about the audience, I'm thinking about like myself, I'm thinking about the stage and where I am on the stage, and like I'm thinking about what I'm doing with my body at any given moment, or like I'm listening, you know, I'm listening to what we're playing, yeah, I try to learn something every time, you know, like if I'm feeling tired or something, like I have to like remind myself like that I'm there to learn something new and try something. So,
but by playing shows like this, what have you discovered about you as a performer?
That I'm much more like punk than I want to be.
Okay. Okay.
Like I thought right before I went on tour that like this record like was gonna be more smooth and like more chill, and some of it is like that. But when there's like some things about myself that I can't help that just like come out when I'm on stage, and no matter how much I like rehearse it a certain way, like it happens a different way. So it's like I guess on stage I tend to be sometimes like more aggressive and like more like high energy or something, and I get my emotions like take over me in a way that I don't always wish they did. Like I wish I was more in control. I wish I was like more chill and like more mellow and more smooth, but I'm not smooth. So that's something I learned this year, I think in particular. Like,
but in that sense, obviously performing is very expressive, and so is that part of kind of the joy you get from it, the catharsis you get out of performing, that energy?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a mirror, you know. It's like they're not things that you necessarily want. Like like I said, like I wish that I was like more smooth and like more chill, but I'm not. So like, I guess like it's a mirror, like that you get to see, learn things about yourself, you know. I love playing, you know, but I think the catharsis that I get more is when I write music more than playing. Playing is like I go around and I put my circus tent in the city, like, and I do my show, like, and no matter what it is, like, no matter where I am or who is there, like, I do my show. It's like a play, you know. So it's very, it's like a service, you know, and it's athletic. His performance is athletic and like repetitive. So there's some catharsis in that like routine of touring and like doing your show and like deepening that experience by doing it every night. But I think the cathartic part of it comes more from like writing.
Very last question then. What have you noticed about what you are writing now? Because the album was released last year. So what are you noticing about what you're writing now?
That I'm still trying to be really chill, but I'm not. I'm noticing that I was wondering about if it's possible to be romantic in 2017. Like, what is romantic? And thinking about romantic music, like about like chromaticism in music, you know, in thinking about like subtlety, you know. These are all things that like I don't think are my forte, but maybe that's why I'm attracted to them. I'm not sure, but yeah, those are some things.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.